Good morning. Just fiddling with a few things. Do you like my set? Be patient with me while I fiddle with things. Hopefully the sound's okay. Hang on a sec. Let me just move that out of screen because I don't know. I hate this thing where people are like this. It just drives me nuts. It's like, can you actually just stage your shots, please? I know that, like, it's a whole aesthetic. Now I just fucked up the microphone. Give me a sec. Look, me all fucking. Here we go. Hang on. The stand broke, so I need to use screws and needle nose pliers. You'd be surprised how handy you end up being when you've got to do sort of lighting and studio stuff and all that kind of thing. But anyway, how is everybody? I don't know. Hang on. Let me just get some stuff up. I've reached a point, right? It's quite funny where I've reached a point. The way that I do things doesn't make any sense to most people, but what I'll do is I'll trash the whole place. I'll put everything out, okay? This is what I do with my work as well, which is we put it all on the table, fucking look at everything, and then start sorting. That's like a UX approach, which is card sorting and all ideas and sorting things and all that sort of stuff. So I have an IA sort of UX approach to my whole life, which is to put everything out, figure out what I need, and I go, okay, so I need a studio. What have I got? What am I working with? What stands have I got? What light stands have I got? What have I got? Blah, blah, blah. Do all that. Then I'll clean and unpack around that. So I set my primary thing and then I'll sort around that process. It's kind of like what you do in business. You go, okay, what's my top priority? Okay, my top priority is the studio. I'm going to do that. And then I'll put the books on the shelf that I want. And then I'll put that, all the stuff I want, and then the rest of the stuff can be like the rest of the house. So anyway, I'm still messing with the lights and the like aesthetic situation. So forgive me. Hang on, I just knocked the power of my laptop. One sec. Can't have that because it's an old, it's the mic's dead. Not the mic, the battery with my MacBook Pro. So if I unplug it, I can't stream because it uses a lot of battery. Anyway, good morning. Need a haircut, need to do my roots. That's the problem with a hair light, is that it shows all your flaws. Tell ya. Where's the fuck? Why is it backwards? Why is it confusing me? Okay, here we go. Morning. How are you? Just give me one sec. So there's a few people watching. Hi. So here we go. So I like it when people give me sort of questions that might be a little fucking, that's going to drive you nuts, isn't it? Let me just tuck that back. Okay, so I like it when people give me like a question or something that just appears like it might be interesting, and it might not even occur to me that people don't know sort of the history of something or like what it is or whatever. So Judith asked me to explain. I haven't had time to bring up the tweet, sorry. But basically, the Internet Archive and WikiLeaks and, you know, there's this whole ecosystem of sort of internet activism. And the context of Julian Assange and sort of Internet Archive and sort of that history of the internet is, it's sort of, I think for people who just sort of got on the internet with a smartphone or sort of only really, got online when it was plug and play and it was easy to get on. I don't think people necessarily realise like this battle that's happened. Now, I don't like using this term. I don't like using the term of sort of colonisation, okay, because that's quite a specific thing. Okay, I'm just going to be fiddling with things for a little bit while I stream because, again, things are going to irritate me and I may as well deal with it now. But some of the stuff, right, this is actually in the second book chapter that I've been sitting on and I haven't had time to finish. And if you're a patron, I so much appreciate the fact that I haven't given anything for your money. It's just I didn't expect to move. I didn't expect to have to, and the problem with moving is that, it wipes out any savings that you've got. So then I feel pressure to earn money, which means I have to take on more client work, which means I have to like stop studying. And, it's just that kind of, we'll put some class analysis into this as well. And why the elephant in the room is always capital. But it's just, I'm spinning my wheels, and I'm also on like higher doses of Lyrica, which if you've ever been on that drug, it fucking turns you into a fucking zombie. And so my brain is foggy, and I've got client work, and I'm just having a lot of like issues because there's, I like set and forget. Like, yeah, anyway, there's just a lot of admin with just simply having a client on the books that people don't know. There's a lot of invisible costs for business, all this admin, and it's just not worth my while. So then I end up spinning my wheels because I have to take on more work to pay the bills. And with, obviously everyone's feeling that at the moment with like the cost of living and inflation. I'm not unusual. Okay. That's why patrons, I so appreciate it that, you support me, because I don't really deliver much for the money, and I understand that, and I'm conscious of that. I was thinking of maybe doing something physical, not like that. Pervert patrons, not like that. Well, pervert patron, there's one who is very generous and anonymous. I don't know who you are, but thank you very much for continuing to give me like that patron money. But I'm conscious of not delivering, so I thought I might do something physical, maybe as a gift. So make sure you update your address if you watch this, okay? Because I might just do some sort of limited print or art thing or T-shirt, or let me know what you'd like, if you'd like something unique, a piece of something, right? Anyway, so yeah, I appreciate that. But that's the problem, with wanting to sort of write everything. But this is the second chapter of my book that I sort of have been pulling together very, very slowly. And that is this idea that when you were there in history, when you were actually present, this is why talking to people about the war, or talking to people about their experiences, or talking to sort of the older generations, or talking to people who were paying attention at the time, is really interesting and enlightening. And I think that there's a whole cohort of early adopting Gen X. So for me, I'm at the end of Gen X. I'm on the border. I was born in 79, so I'm sort of elder millennial or Gen X, depending on what category. But I kind of identify with both. I probably identify more with Gen X than I do like sort of the older millennial, right? But I was an early adopter, but I was also of an age where I could understand life before the internet, where I understood, but I was early enough on the internet to go through sort of old school stuff. Okay, so 1994, you go on and you log on and you got Usenet. Okay, you got file sharing. You've got, a relatively free and open internet that had a high barrier to entry. People who didn't, people really didn't, weren't interested. Like most of the people, the older generation, they weren't interested. It was just a thing for nerds. The popular kids weren't on the internet. Like I had friends and I was like, gosh, you got to get on this thing. And they're like, why? I don't understand it. It seems like a nerd thing. That was the kind of thing that, we went through. And, I learned early desktop publishing. I used the first version of Photoshop in black and white on a Macintosh Classic black and white screen. I'd love to get another one. I'd love to have one as a souvenir in the background. So if you know anyone who has one that wants to gift me an old shitty black and white Macintosh, I'd love to get hold of one. But anyway, so but I graduated to the LC 475 and the LC3, and then the LC 575, and then all those things with a Mac. And then I moved to PC because I was poor, so I couldn't afford a Mac. I used the Mac at school. I used to literally borrow the school Mac for the holidays because, my dad hocked my CDs. I couldn't have anything like that in the house because it would get hocked or whatever. But I would physically borrow I'd borrow from school, the media department. So for the school holidays, I'd take, because, that's right, because we had a break-in in the media room. And, I was 14 at the time? 1994, 15. I was 15 at the time in 1994, and there was a break-in in the media room where all of the equipment and everything got stolen. So what he would do is sort of, lock it all away. But what I would do is borrow the computer for the holidays and sort of learn that stuff and do my own thing on the Mac. And then my dad got me an Amstrad. He was one of those guys that would I sound like fucking Abe Simpson, but I'll get there. But my dad was one of those guys that would bring shit home from the pub because he won stuff playing pool. Like he'd go, oh yeah, he was at the pub all the time. He's an alcoholic. So he'd come home, stuff that fell off the back of a truck, dodgy shit, right? And he brought me home the computer. And, he was of that generation where I remember my dad, when I tried to show him how a computer worked, and he physically sort of picked up the mouse and he put it on the screen of the computer and tried to move it around, right? My dad invented the first iPad and touch screen. But anyway, side point. But, that generation, they were just like, oh, well, you want a computer? Well, here's a computer. And it was an Amstrad CPC 6128. It was monochrome. And then there was another one that was like an old what was it? It was before the Pentium. It was the Pentium 4, right? That age. And I started to learn how to do coding and BASIC. And so, so through the LC, so sort of through the Amstrad, I learned BASIC. Watch my first video about the thing that happened there. The Commodore 64 at my mum's house, all these things I just sort of cobbled together. But I was of an age where I could understand how cool it was, but I was and old enough to see the future. Like I was old enough to see where this was heading. I wasn't young enough, like my son, to just take it for granted. Like a lot of the older people, young sort of people, when they first got onto the internet, it was easier to use. The tech was easier to use. It was harder to get. It was easier to get on, like AOL and all that stuff. I've been writing about AOL because it's America Online is a pivotal moment, right, where the internet shifted. It's called the Eternal September. I've talked about that in a previous video. The Eternal September. But also you've got this, and I'm getting to the history of the DMCA because I think it's really important that what I'm trying to write about in this book and to frame Dying by the Sword properly. And this is why writing it and releasing chapter by chapter and watching it evolve, even if it takes me, 10 years to do, which is likely, which is that it's kind of a historical account of what happened in my eyes and my experience in my world in a micro way that informs the macro sort of, the bigger shift in sort of internet policy and the DMCA and RIAA and MPAA. There's a lot of acronyms. All right. Another acronym. Funny that. But, there's a lot of history with this stuff. But what's happened is that what was interesting was that I went through Wikipedia. And when you go through Wikipedia, let's say like what happened in the year 1977. I can't remember what it was. I was just going through various things. What key events can I link a lot of this stuff to? You got to look that stuff up, right? Research that stuff. But what you look at on Wikipedia is sort of this strange sort of timeline. So when you say, okay, what happened? And there's these key events. Okay. The people who report history, they report that in terms of narrative, right? We know this. We're seeing this happen now where people are rewriting history, corporations in particular, and this is the part where I want to talk about how the internet was gentrified and the internet was taken over and there was a hostile takeover, okay? And again, I'm uncomfortable with the word colonization, but it's effectively what has happened, which is that, there's a whole cohort of internet users who were promised one thing, and then there was and we signed up in good faith, and I signed up to an industry in good faith based on a promise that turned out to be a big fucking lie because it was taken over by corporations. Okay, so the corporate hijacking of the internet comes very much to what Judith asked me about the Internet Archive. Okay, now so the Internet Archive are constantly under attack. And I'll explain what they are and why it's really important. But they sort of exist under an exemption in the DMCA, and they have to keep fighting for that because every single time you'll see the comical amount of review and additions. It is the most absurd fucking thing you'd ever imagine, because the DMCA is something that is abused by when you see like Facebook, like this happened to my last stream where Facebook went, we muted some of your video, 8 minutes of your video, because you used copyrighted material. And I was like, okay, well, the BBC clip was only 3 minutes long, but they don't tell you what it was. You got to watch the whole thing and see what's muted, and you don't know what you did. You don't know what it is. And it's the same thing with YouTube, right? Where you will grab let's say you use a song and you monetize, that the content automatically they've got this content detection tool, an algorithm, which again, when you're in tech, you go, that's fucking impressive tech. It's cool tech. It's abusive. Okay. It abuses the system, because basically what's happened with fair use is that it's just this constant war on with copyright and fair use. And, if you show a 15 to 30-second clip, basically what happens is that they still will do a copyright claim and you've got to dispute it. But YouTube basically say, okay, well, you're on your own. We're not involved. We can't determine what is and isn't fair use. So you've got to go to court. Now, everyone knows that no one's going to go to court or be able to afford to go to court to defend themselves against for fair use. And I've been fighting my career started fighting for fair use because I started, with Lisa Loeb tabs, right? So basically, I've still got that old website there where guitar tabs, and I would do by ear and I'd write out guitar tabs, and Alfred Publishing took issue and I got a takedown notice, and I said, no, fuck you, because I had a relationship with the manager. I asked to speak to the manager. I didn't. I just emailed her. And she just, she emailed me with the takedown, and I replied with my case, and I said, no, this is fair use. This is fan shit. We do this for the love. It's not sheet music. If Alfred has an issue with that, then, we're not competing. The people who read my website are fans. They're going to buy the stuff. There's no conflict there. Okay, my tabs are still on like Ultimate Guitar. I've got to put more up, but I actually got to submit them to Ultimate Guitar because I never did. Make a note of that project, but that so that record exists, and I don't get memory hold as someone who can do guitar tabs, right? So anyway, that's the side point. But there's this whole rich history around what happened in the bait and switch, and to explain to Judith what that means, what something means, like the Internet Archive currently trying to fight against a review, you need to go back. Okay, you need to go right back to the war on the internet. And I think it's an interesting thing to talk about. Now, it's probably quite a lot of stuff, so I have to break it into, varying. I have to, yeah. So hang on, let me just check. Is anyone chatting? No. Okay. I wasn't sure. I was not certain. Okay, it's all good. Hang on, let me just drag this chat over here so I can see them. Still haven't fixed the font because I was fixing other things. But anyway, hello everybody. So now, if you're watching on my private Facebook, the chats probably may not come up, and I don't know if LinkedIn does or whatever. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Anyway, the lighting sucks. I've still got to fix it. Anyway, better than it was. I don't like the color grading on this. Anyway, so the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Okay. Was it 1998? Actually, in all my fucking haste, I forgot to look up the actual act. Give me 1 second. Let me correct myself. It's a lot to remember, but it wasn't my focus. Okay. So the DMCA. Okay. Basically, and Australia's got a similar version of the same thing. Basically, the world, this is a problem with like corporations lobbying over copyright law. There's a Marxist analysis that can be had here around copyright in principle, okay? Now, the internet the idea was that information is free and that, write, share, whatever, do what you want to do. Now, as a designer, okay, and as someone in business, and as someone who created, I used to, illustrate and do artwork and animations and VFX and coding, and as someone who creates a product or something, okay, and as someone who, produces creative assets, right? That's what I do. It's what I it's what I do for money is design, right? And varying other aspects of production, writing, all that stuff. I understand the argument, and I'm going to show you a funny old ad from the US, which is long, but it's fucking hilarious. But it has a good argument. Okay, now let's just get this up. A sec on. Hang on. To YouTube. Hang on. So the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It sounds like CompuHyper Global Meganet. Right? It was one of those things. It's quite funny because something is from the 90s in terms of the way that it's been like named or anything like that, you know, because anything that mentions millennium or fucking cyber or like, you know, surfing web or fucking interspace and those sorts of things, they're very dated, right? We're in a state, at this stage, the internet was new and exciting and had, you know, that attached sort of, you know, these weird words to everything, like the digital millennium copyright act. It's funny. Like, you fucking boomers. But where are we? Hang on, let me get the, what am I, oh, there we go. I was going to play it in a different thing, that's why. Hang on. So, oh, this is fucking hilarious, man. Hang on, let me just get this up. Out. Okay. Now, wait, I prepared as usual. Sorry, I just wanted to get that video up. So, let me just give me 1 sec. I'm still fucking like configuring everything again. You'd be amazed what you have to like configure over and over again when you move or whatever, because I'm in a different set. I sit differently in a different frame. I've got to move over here for the fucking to play a video and stuff. But okay, so I'm gonna just show you this because it's funny and it gives me a minute to fucking prepare myself. Okay, so give me a sec. I'm gonna sit in the background and fiddle with some stuff. Okay, while I get ready. Give me a sec. Right, so let's copy that. Let's just do this thing.
I'm trying. I'm going to beat you. I'm telling you. You're not going to be. There's one behind you. Oh, man. Crash and burn.
Too bad, Corey. Guess that makes me the winner. Again.
Temporary winner. I've been holding back. I've been giving you a break just so you get the hang of it. But now it's time to teach you a little respect.
Right. But it'll have to be next time. It's almost fourth period and I do not want to get caught in here.
But Jenny, hold up. Look, I brought a disc and we could copy this, okay? And we can play it on my brother's computer.
Okay, no problem. All we gotta do is... Whoa.
Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Did I hear you right? Did I hear you saying that you're gonna make a copy of a game without paying? Come on, guys. I thought you knew better. Don't copy that.